You know, it's funny. People say like, you know, because I got this box with all this Lord of the Rings stuff. It's like, why don't you get rid of all that stuff? I'm like, why are you holding on to it? I'm like, I don't know, but I am. I still have the original T-shirts in the plastic bags. I still have all the little things that Peter Jackson gave us as little presents, little Sting letter openers, and you know, the Lord of the Rings beach towel, and the on-set vests, and you know, all this stuff. I've kept it all. I've kept the storyboards, you know, all that stuff. I mean, I don't know why, but wow. Well, I think the thing is that visual effects in the way that they exist now, or have been for the last, you know, couple of decades, didn't exist around the time that I was going to school for fine art. Although I was interested in computer animation, it was quite primitive. It pretty much looked like, you know, animated spirograph back then, and it certainly wasn't showing up in the movies. I know I wanted to be involved in movies one way or the other, and I first got my foot in the door when Trumbull's group started Berkshire Motion Picture. Geez, back here in the late 80s, I finally got in the early 90s. Well, I think one of the fascinating things, of course, of walking in there during the time, especially during the production of Judge Dredd, was that they had a massive miniature photography setup with a huge gantry camera system. And for someone who hasn't been sort of involved with this kind of undertaking, it was pretty impressive and exciting. And there was a lot of activity with hundreds of people working on building the miniatures, designing them, lighting them, painting them, and ultimately photographing them in the different lighting recipes that they used. It was really fascinating, and I was lucky enough to help out in the previs department with the design phase, aiding both the model makers and the folks who are going to be setting them up for lighting and ultimately filming. And yeah, later on, a few years later, a few more movies under our belt, we started doing some research and development and some look development for two interesting movies, the Painted World portion of What Dreams May Come, and then the bullet time sequences in The Matrix. Unfortunately, when it came time to actually work on those films, the post-production was going to be done out in California, which is, of course, all the way across the country from where I was here in Western Mass. So I went out there, leaving my family behind, with the notion that this was going to be temporary. But of course, fast forward 2.5 years later, I'm still out there commuting back and forth to the East Coast to West Coast. Brought the family out, who really weren't all that enthralled with the idea of going from rural Western Massachusetts to the densely populated areas of California. So after those movies were ultimately completed, it came time to scratch my head and say, you know, well, what options do we have? And I had jokingly mentioned to my family, I said, well, there's a 3-year project in New Zealand, and they actually went for it. And although I was a fan of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, it was more about going to a place where the family was going to be comfortable and all be together with me. And so we bit the bullet and off we went for that 3-year adventure. I have been paying close attention to the way that the industry had been changing. There have been some significant developments in how the platforms evolved from silicon graphics, expensive, to the basically personal workstations, and the software too was coming down significantly in price. So what would have been prohibitively expensive going back to the days, say, making The Matrix, the workstation that I sat at probably cost several $100,000, hardware and software together. Doing the math a few years later, after my experience in New Zealand on Lord of the Rings, I said, geez, you know, for just, you know, $20,000, $30,000, I could do this from anywhere. And that's basically how my company got off the ground, was it was an option for me to stay in the business that I loved, but also put myself in a situation in which my family could stay put. The kids could all stay in the same school, stay with their friends, stay in the same house, and get to have that stability. Well, one of the things we never had to worry about, I think, in the early days was our cost. I believe that we were significantly lower than most companies doing this kind of work. We were small, very, very little overhead. And the folks that we knew in the business, they trusted us and liked us, so it was a perfect combination. We win and they win. And that seemed to work really well. We were batting 1,000 for the first few years, the 3-4 years that we were in existence here, and it was really great.
I'd say in terms of the industry here, outsourcing, I think, historically has been affecting any industry. The film industry, I don't know if it's a problem that's being outsourced. I would say the problem is if it's being outsourced illegally. So if we're being beaten number-wise based on illegal software, illegal users, non-paid people, non-paid, I'd say that would be a problem. Because you can't compete with that.
Yeah, everybody asks me, I'm like, how did you ever end up here? You know, I'm married with kids, and in LA we were heading for, you know, great careers with a full-time nanny and kids in private school, and that's not what we wanted. So we just quit both of our jobs. I actually have a staff job in compositing, which is quite uncommon. I was part of the staff team at CIS. So, and Tracy, my wife, did creative advertising for Warner Brothers, so she did all the theatrical releases. We both quit our jobs, moved. We wanted to move back east because she was from Connecticut area, and I'm from Toronto, Canada. So it was just kind of an equal distance between the two families.
In the short run, what we've done is taken steps to reduce our overhead. We're moving from where we currently are, which has been great for us and very spacious, to a place that's less than half its size, but our overhead costs will be less than half. So I'm hoping that we can rework our pricing structure for future bids so that we can be competitive with these folks overseas.